Hey guys, it's TechMaster2133 here again, and I have something a little bit different than my laptop or gameplay footage. I wanted to show you this 10-year-old Dell Dimension 4600 that I have. Or it may look like a 4600, but it's had a few changes during its life. Let's see here. On the outside, I added in a writable CD-ROM and a multi-burner DVD-ROM drive. And not too much for the case. In the back it's got VGA. This should be your first clue that it's had a few additions to it. It's got HDMI, and some of these are USB 3.0 and not 2.0. Alright, I'm going to have to put down the camera for a second, because anybody that's worked on a Dimension 4600 know that the side panels on them are pretty much glued on, and it takes a sledgehammer and a pry bar to get them off. So, give me 1 second. Actually, wasn't too hard this time. Outside. Alright, now, taking one look at this thing, you'll realize this is not a Dell Dimension motherboard. What this is an Acer Aspire AX1430G motherboard out of a small form factor computer that I stuffed in here. I pretty much built this computer out of spare parts, spit and glue. What it's got is 2 gigs of DDR3 1333 MHz memory, a 1.65 GHz dual-core AMD E450 APU. This is a laptop processor. Its max TDP is like 35 watts. Now, what surprised me is the fact that Acer would stick a laptop dual-core in a desktop PC. That just didn't make much sense to me. And a couple other things. This is a SATA DVD-ROM and SATA hard drive. A 250 watt high pro power supply. Not the best in the world that I would go with, but it works. I'm not going to be putting huge loads on it. Now comes the interesting part. I did not have any SATA power supply or power supplies that had SATA connectors on them anymore. So I made my own by cutting the end of the connector off of the old power supply that these were originally connected to, splicing them to this power supply. And it seemed to work just fine. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. This computer is probably going to be used for very light gaming. It's only 1.65 gigahertz. It's fairly weak. It does have the Radeon 6320 built-in GPU, since it is an APU, but it is by no means a gaming computer. This thing is fairly weak, and it runs fairly hot because you cannot upgrade the heatsink on this, and it is really freaking small. Under load, this thing gets probably 70-75 Celsius. I am going to add probably more RAM in it because it's running Windows 7, and 2 gigs just doesn't cut it. You can select how much video memory you want dedicated from the RAM, and right now it can go up to 512 megabytes, but I have it set to 256 just so that Windows has more to play with. My original plan for this thing was I was going to use it to run a virtual machine, of which I had it doing running XP. It was running 2 copies of Windows XP. I was going to do that for my virus testing, see which antivirus is what type of thing. Because I've done it before on single-core machines, and well, it wasn't too great. So, yeah, it worked okay on XP, but it definitely needs more RAM. There's really not too much to say about this thing, Except, yeah, I built it out of scrap parts, and I really wasn't expecting this motherboard to fit in here. But it does, and it works fine. I did have to add on a USB extension to get my front panel USB to work, and I still don't have the right cable to get my front panel audio to work. But yeah, this thing originally had a 2.8 gigahertz Pentium 4 hyper-threaded, so a bit of an upgrade, just a little bit. But yeah, I don't know how often I'll be able to make videos at the moment, because I seem to have lost my camera charger, and this thing isn't telling me how much battery life it has left. So, if you don't see any videos from me for a while, this camera is rather old. It's a Nikon Coolpix S230, which came out years ago, 10 megapixel, so I might just buy a new camera, but until then, I won't be able to make any videos, unless they're gameplay videos, so keep tuned and I'll let you know. But yeah, that's the conclusion of this old Dell Dimension 4600 reborn with some slightly newer parts, and yeah, hope you like it. Alright, bye tubers.